Right, so in this webinar, we'll be looking at common mistakes in these 4 areas. Okay, first of all, articles, plurals, and countable, non-countable nouns, okay? So we've just put grammar in brackets. So that is the kind of area, the criteria that you'll be looking at. So if you want to improve and get a better band score in this area, you need to make sure these mistakes, you don't make these kinds of mistakes. Does anyone make these sorts of mistakes? Articles, plurals, and countable, non-countable nouns? A lot. Okay, articles tends to be a very, very common mistake, particularly I used to live in Japan, and in Japanese they don't have articles, so this is a very common mistake. And I teach a lot of Chinese people as well, so this is another error. So if you don't have this in your language, it can be quite difficult. And I think for Spanish speakers, like the definite article can be difficult as well. Okay, and then we have linking expressions. So we've got C and C in brackets here. What does that stand for? C and C. Hi, John. So I will try and acknowledge you as you arrive. Coherence and cohesion, that's right. So what does that actually mean? Cohesion, coherence, what do those 2 words mean? What does cohesion mean? What does cohesion mean? Yeah, nice expression, sorry, nice explanation, Neo. So logically linked, how to logically link expressions. Yeah, linking words, sequence of ideas. And then coherence is about fluency, that's right. Logical flow of information, making the ideas flow naturally. Abdullah, that's nice. So you've got some really good explanations. Yeah, so you need to make sure these are correct, in other words. Okay, and then we'll be looking at the introduction to task 2. Okay, so it's a little part at the beginning, how you actually introduce the task and what kind of verbs you should be using. Okay, so sometimes people make mistakes with these verbs, so we want to make sure you're using the correct ones. Okay, and then other common mistakes. So while I'm going through the webinar, through the presentation, try, if you can, to think about other common mistakes you make, okay? So, and think about particular issues you have, maybe questions, and I'll try and help you at the end. Okay, don't worry if you're late, long, that's fine, you can catch up. We haven't actually properly started, so that's okay. Right, so to start with, we're looking at articles. So what do I mean by articles? Yeah, so and the, yeah. So definite, indefinite articles. Yeah, these kind of, so people are giving really good examples, so that's great. I'm going to give you a couple of sentences, so you need to tell me which is correct and why. Okay, so most of you have got this. In many countries, the most serious public health issue is obesity. And yet, a lot of people make this mistake, okay? So it's something that people don't always notice when they're reading through their essays. Why is this one correct? Yeah, Alexis, that's right. So the superlative should have the. That's right. So used before superlative adjectives, for example, the highest, the most important, the best, the only, okay? So one thing to notice, so for some of you, I realize that, you know, some of this might be quite easy, for other people it's not so much. But just remember, if you have a really short adjective like high, big, for example, so an adjective that has 1 syllable, you add the and est in the superlative. But if it's a longer adjective, okay, like important, so Yeah, so important, so it has 3 syllables, so you'd say the most, okay? And then you need to make sure you know your irregular adjectives as well. Okay, yeah, the least important, that's right. So if you're weak at grammar, hopefully this will be useful for you. Right, the next one. This is a growing problem in the United States, for example. This is a growing problem in the United States, for example. Good, everyone's got that right. Okay, why is that correct? When do we say the before a country? Yeah, the US, the UK, someone said. Yeah, so I think you're sort of getting it. Yeah, the Netherlands. I have to say, you know, as I said, I've taught academic English or EAP for a long time, and this is such a common mistake. And I'm always correcting my students' essays. They write they write United Kingdom without the, and it's really annoying because I'm always correcting them. So try to remember this. So it's used for countries or places where the names refer to a group of islands or states. Okay, as we said, the United Kingdom, also the Middle East. Can you think of any other examples? Yeah, the table's disappeared. I think it's a mistake long. I'm sorry, it will come back, don't worry. Yeah, the Philippines, good. Any others? The Czech Republic, you can't say the turkey, no, unless you're talking about a bird. The Bahamas, the United Arab Emirates, that's right. So it's for a group of islands or states, it's a collection of islands. So in this case, we've got a few islands here, so we say the United Kingdom. You can't say the South Korea. Okay, so in general, with United, it's always the United something. In general, you don't need the before countries. Okay, so these are exceptions. Yeah, so long, that's right. So the Republic of something, that's right. So the Republic of Congo, for example. So some of you were giving good examples, other people maybe not, they're not right. So just remember, in general, you don't need the before countries. So try to learn the exceptions. Okay, particularly if you live in one of those countries. So as I said, many of my students make a mistake with the UK and it's a bit annoying because they live here. The table is coming back, it's just taking a break. Right, so the next one. So which one is correct? Yeah, so the number of overweight people is increasing. Yeah, so again, this is a really easy mistake to make, okay? Why is that correct? Yeah, why is the second one right? Yeah, the number. So we always say the number of something. Okay, so it describes a specific quantity. So we say the number of, the amount of, that's right, so Long said this, the volume of. Okay. Also for ordinal numbers, okay? So by ordinal numbers, we mean when you're sort of saying the first, the second, the third, those kind of numbers. Okay, so these are just things you need to try to remember as you go along. All right, so just remember we never say number of. It's the number of, the amount of, the volume of. Okay, and here is another very common mistake. Okay, which one is correct? Okay, so we've got mixed answers here. Some people are saying 1, some people are saying 2. Right, let's see which one's correct. Okay, so it's actually the second one. So with advice, it's uncountable, so you never say good advice. Okay, what would you say? Okay, so you can say good advice. You can also say some good advice. So yeah, shaksod. So you'd say a piece of advice, right? So if you add that, that is fine, but you can't use advice on its own. You can't say a good advice. Okay, you have to say a piece of advice or a piece of good advice. It's because it's uncountable. Okay, so it doesn't need a before it. So let's just have a look. Okay, so uncountable, it's not specific. But if you're talking about particular advice, okay, so if you give me some advice and I'm talking about that, I might say the advice you gave me was helpful. Okay, so in that case, you can say the advice, right? But you can never say a advice or an advice. It sounds really weird. So remember, if you're talking about specific advice, okay, you can use the, but generally you wouldn't. Yeah, really. I know it's a lot of people make this mistake. They really do. Somebody or few of you knew that you can say a piece of advice. So here is a piece of advice. Okay, that makes it countable. You can't say an advice, Ali. So just try to remember this. Can you think of any other nouns like this? Any other examples? Luggage, that's right, Long, yes. So you could say a piece of luggage, a piece of information, yeah. News, furniture, yeah. Knowledge, yes. Yeah, that's right. A piece of knowledge. Yeah, so you've got some good examples there. Okay, and then this one, in my opinion, government should also regulate unhealthy food. Okay, most of you've got it right, so it's the. Okay, it's always the government. Okay, why is it the government? Specific, yes. There's one government, yeah, so it's more about that really. So it refers to the only one in a particular area or the world. Okay, so if I talk about the government, I'm not referring to any of your governments unless you live in the UK. So I'm talking about my specific one. Okay, so and when you talk to people, when you say that, people would know you're talking about yours. So it's not really to do with authority. It's more about just being the specific one for you. So in this case, the only one in a particular area or the world. We also say the police. And can you think of other examples? The doctor, yeah, you would say that. The moon, yes. The president, exactly. The prime minister, we would say as well. The sun. The teacher, if you're talking about a specific teacher, like you might refer to me as the teacher, for example, in this case. The earth, yeah, the railway station, yeah, exactly. So it's the same sort of thing, even though there are many stations in the world. If you say the railway station, you're talking about the one near you. Okay, so just a few more examples. The environment, the internet, okay, there's only one. The moon, right? So most of those examples that you've given, like the Ministry of Health is fine. The earth, that's right, yeah. The idea, that would have to be if you're talking about a specific idea, okay, that somebody's just talked about and you're referring to that, okay. Right, now coming on to singular and plural. Students often have difficulty with the following areas. Can you correct the sentences? Okay, so first of all, plural form with many plus a number of. There are many transport options in my city. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that should be options. Yeah, I mean, it probably sounds like a really silly mistake to make, but honestly, so many people make this. So I think it's just a case of being like, when you're checking your work, thinking about what you can look out for, because this is a very easy slip. Okay, so I assume that most of you would know that that's, it's supposed to be S, but you might not, when you're checking, you might not think about it. So it's really making you aware of that. Okay, and then the next one. The number of men studying engineering has decreased. Yeah, men. Yes, that's right. And then some nouns have different plural forms, as you probably realize. I'm going to ask you in a minute for a very common mistake that my students make. So this one, childs in today's society. Yeah, children. A lot of people, I've noticed, children is a plural noun, so you don't add an S to that. Okay, so you can't say children's. Well, you can say children's if it's possessive. Okay, so you might say children's, I don't know, children's needs today are different, for example. If it's possessive, it's okay. Apostrophe S, but otherwise it doesn't take an S. Yeah, and that's right. Kids is not academic. So it's okay to use in conversation, but not in an essay. Yeah, so Garvit, that's a good example. Children's Society. Yeah, exactly. No, transportation doesn't take an S, Ashmita. How about this one? People. Yeah. So some people, this is another common error, is people use persons, okay, for plural. And you might see persons written on signs, okay, so it's quite often in very formal signs, but when you put when you put it in an essay, you'd always say people, and it doesn't need S. And some nouns, I was going to give you another example. What's the plural of woman? Women. Okay, yeah. This is, okay, everybody knows it, good. This is, honestly, it's such a common mistake with my students, and it's quite frustrating. They always end up saying women's and woman's, and for some reason it's a hard one to get right. So just remember that one. So some nouns don't have a plural form. Okay, so what's wrong with this one? Yeah, so you can say citizens, that's right. So money, and any other mistake? Furniture, yeah. Okay, so those two words never take S. Okay. And then this one. Information, yeah. Same thing, you don't need an S there. So persons, yeah, persons is formal and it means people. But when you're in this essay, you have to use people, okay? Persons is more what you might see in a sign, okay? For example, I'm just thinking of, obviously I live in London, I'm thinking of the underground. So you might see persons in different signs in the underground. Okay, so this is where people get confused, but just remember to use people in this essay. Another thing that's catch some people out is that some nouns look plural, but they aren't. So no, Kagla, you can't use informations. It's no S, okay? No S. So it's like advice and knowledge and these kind of words. Right, one issue with social media is the number of fake news. What's the mistake there? Yeah, so This looks like a plural noun because it's got an S, okay, but it's not. What should you say there? There's a mistake here. Issue is okay. Yeah, it's not numbers. Number is the mistake, but what should you say? Yeah, somebody said it actually. So, yeah, so you're starting to say, yes, the amount, that's right. So the amount of fake news, okay, because that's uncountable. Even though it's got an S, it's uncountable. So these are kind of fake, sort of fake friends, really. So they get you get the wrong impression because they've got an S. Another similar word is series. Okay, S-E-R-I-E-S. So that is the same, really. So you can't say one. You can't really say. I can't think of an example now. But anyway, it's similar to news just because it's got an S. Okay, another one. Economics are an increasingly popular choice of subject. Okay, what's the problem with that? Is, exactly. So that's got an S, but it's singular. And then another one, which is really common. I keep thinking, honestly, these are probably the most common mistakes you ever see in essays. Subject-verb agreement. So Samal, it's is because it's singular, okay. Subject-verb agreement. So for example, a lot of food are thrown away every day. What's wrong with that? Is, yeah. Local businesses has to reduce their prices. Have, that's right. Okay, because it's plural. So as I said, it could be that some of these mistakes are, they're quite easy mistakes. But it could be that you just don't notice when you're checking your work, right? So these are things to look out for. Okay, so I would make a note of these particular mistakes. And when you've written your essay, just check through. So when you're doing the practice for this essay, it will really help you to be aware of the kind of mistakes that you might be making. So Sri is saying, could we say their price? No, because that would mean that they have the same price. So they're all individual businesses. Okay, so they have different prices. Youth is used as plural or singular. The youth of today. I'm trying to think of an example. So it's plural and singular actually, because you can describe someone as a youth, but it's also plural, so it's both. You can say lots of food, that's right, lots of food, but it still would be is thrown away. Yeah, any other questions about that? 30-day course, yeah, you wouldn't say day. That's a really good example, Ali, thank you. So when you have a number, a 30-day course, you don't need an S with day. Okay. Yeah, and Ashmita, news is you use is. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Folk is countable. It depends on what kind of folk, I think. If it's music or people. So linking expressions. Can you match the correct linker into the sentence? Okay, so this is a very, very common error as well. It's when people use the wrong linking words and it kind of really stands out. So instead of creating cohesion, you kind of create confusion. So we've got some linking words here. Quite a few, forgot there were this many. And let's just have a look at the text here. So see if you can add the correct words. Yeah, so some of you getting that, although. Can you, what I might do actually is also see if you can give me alternatives. So we can do that at the end. So the next one. Despite, good. Okay, the next one. So you're just using the ones we've got here, okay? Yeah, such as, that's right. So you're giving an example. First of all, good. And remember, when you're sequencing, you need a comma, okay, after that. And yeah, which results? The next one. Yeah, also, I think some of you said that. Also, they do not run out as, that's right. The next one. Yeah. Sorry, so finally, yeah. So this is a really good example of sequencing, using sequencing expressions. So first of all, you could say secondly here, but we just said also, you're adding information. And then finally, right? So I think that's really clear. Okay, then the last part here. Yeah, so the last part is in conclusion, because it's the last bit. And then despite the fact that, okay. So I'm always recommending that students use this phrase because it just makes your writing sound more academic. Are you confident about using this phrase despite the fact that? Some of you are, some of you not. Okay, I mean, what you need to remember, if I'm just going to compare it with, if you look at despite at the top, so despite on its own is followed by a noun. Okay, so you've got ing, which is a gerund. Here, however, despite the fact that, it's combined with a verb phrase. Okay, so you don't need to change the verb. Yeah, Ahmed, it's a good point actually. So two despites, is it okay? It's not ideal. I would probably change it actually. I think the second one you can keep it in. What could you say here instead? Instead of the first despite, what could you say? Yeah, in spite of also having. Okay. Another, actually, I've just thought of another typical mistake with this is some people think despite is followed by of. It's never followed by of, okay? So despite is the same or is similar to in spite of, okay? But only in spite of takes of. Right, let's just very briefly see if you can think of other expressions. What could you say instead of although here? You can't really say however, even though it means the same, it would have to come later on in the sentence. While is fine, even though is fine, yeah. Whereas is okay. Not furthermore, furthermore is adding, okay. Despite, as we said, in spite of, okay, instead of such as, what could you say? For example, yeah, that's right. Okay, and then first of all, what could you say? Firstly, yeah. To begin with, yeah, some of your expressions are a little bit informal. So I would probably say firstly, first of all. First and foremost is a little bit informal. To start with, yes, I guess you could say that. Another addition phrase instead of also. Furthermore, yeah. Any others? Moreover, that's right. Or secondly, you could just say secondly. Finally, I think finally is a good one to use here because it shows that it's the last point.